Yeah, Messiah.
You're a Yud Aleph, Omen Aleph.
Yud Aleph and Kesuvos, the Mishnah. Okay.
On the bottom.
On the bottom. Okay. Okay. Kesuvos. Their Kesuva is 200 zuz.
That's the top dollar.
Yeah.
In other words, any type of this type of activity, on Godel or a cotton sheet, there was an accident where a piece of wood, or whatever it was, any one of these types, she still is entitled to a top dollar because none of this is considered, technically speaking, a type of sexual intercourse.
Even Rabbi Meir.
Yeah.
Say, we can say it's Kesuvos that they agree with Rabbi Meir as far as a cotton that has a gadol that has relations with the ketana or a cotton that has relations with the gedola.
Yeah.
They have no argument. Their only argument is that they say if the limb of a tree hit her in such a way as to break part of her hymen, Kesuvos amana. In that case, her ksuva would be 100. It would be
100, as though she had been a married woman.
A ba'ula, as if she would have, she was not
That's
a basula.
what they're trying to say.
Okay, that's the chacham. Okay,
But there's a disagreement.
that's a disagreement.
Yeah,
between Rabbi Meir and the public.
Okay.
Rabbi Meir holds that if there was an accident in this case, there was no intercourse.
Right.
Why should you even consider
That's
it
right.
anything
To
less?
penalize
And
it.
why should you be penalized? For
Right,
what?
yeah.
Okay, basula. Okay,
Now another
now we're
case.
talking about a basula. But she also happens...
Basula was
Translate
Basula
that.
is virgin, physically a virgin.
Yeah.
Okay, but Amana, she is a basula who is also a widow.
Yes, she got married, never
That
come
means-
Got married, her husband died
Husband
before he
died
got
before they got
divorced.
married. Or she's a
Same thing if
divorcee.
God forbid she became a divorcee. She married him, didn't have time to thing, and then later
Got
on,
divorced right away.
they separated right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or she went through the process of chalutza where her
Yeah.
husband died and they didn't have children,
Yeah.
and he chose not to give her yibum to marry her.
Not to marry her.
The brother should.
And the surviving brother refuses to marry her. The surviving brother must refuse to marry her. The Torah gave a choice to the surviving brother to marry the widow if they had no children with the first brother. But nowadays he must refuse. And a chalutza is something like a grusha, like a divorcee.
But by the Rabbanim, the Agrushas, the Arais and a Chalutza, the Rabbanim added later on. That
right.
She also is
All right.
included in this category. Min Hanasuyan, meaning that after they had gone into Chuppah, after they had gone into the second stage of marriage, they came to these things occurred.
All right.
That is, they were divorced, right after they were divorced.
All right.
And,
In other words,
and they had not
ordinarily, after the second stage of marriage,
consummated the marriage.
a woman is no longer a virgin because the marriage
That's right.
is consummated.
Yeah.
Where
It
in
wasn't
fact,
consummated.
It wasn't consummated.
Yeah, but
Now
but
the
she has
question
the
is,
token.
how much money is she entitled to get for a marriage?
Okay, so Ksuba, their Ksuba is a mana. Even though she's a basula, though because of these things that happened to her after the second stage of marriage, they say that she gets only a mana, not 100. So
That's
not
only-
Because there was no declaration made that she is to be presumed to be a virgin. Ordinarily, a woman that has gone through 2 stages of marriage, in fact, when she marries a second time, is not a virgin.
True.
And so therefore, unless it's specifically specified,
Spelled out in
Well,
Hoover
yeah.
that was handed to
yeah,
her.
that
she
was
is a virgin.
presumed to be a virgin.
Yeah. Then she would
there-
get the 200.
Yeah, but that the marriage contract just reads that she has already been married once before, so therefore she only gets what is.
We're talking the second time around.
Yeah, I understand.
She wants to get married again. She's getting married again.
Yeah,
and
but
the
she actually didn't come.
Yeah. Okay. The Ein Lohen Tainus and their husbands, their next husbands, don't have a Tainus Basulim, meaning that they cannot cause her to lose her entire ksuba. That they cannot cause her to lose her entire ksuba. Meaning they're not allowed to let her lose the money that she is entitled to.
The 100.
They could say, but they can't because of this, that it was a fraud. It was a fraud deal.
Now, in other words, this is what you're saying here. We have this woman that physically is still a virgin.
Yeah.
She's gone through a second stage of marriage.
Yes.
There was no declarations made at the time that she was still a virgin.
Yeah.
So we presume, like an ordinary woman that's gone through a second marriage, she's no longer a virgin. This is the ordinary case.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing spelled out to say the fact that she was different. Now we're looking from the other side of the coin. The husband cannot claim that he was defrauded in the second marriage by a presumption that she was still a virgin, because in truth,
It didn't.
There was no declaration made
Yeah,
that
she
she was
was.
still
Yeah,
still
he's
going
got
back.
no ground.
He had no grounds to attack the second
Clear,
marriage
very clear.
and to claim she shouldn't get anything because of the clear out fraud.
Yeah.
And that is not the case.
Yeah,
Hey,
I'm clear on that.
You understand?
Okay.
Third case.
Okay, third case is somebody a girl who converts to Judaism, and a shvuya is a captive, a Jewish girl who was a captive among goyim, and we can't be sure whether if she was a basula before, she's still a basula after.
Unfortunately,
I understand.
Unfortunately, a girl that was born a non-Jew, we make no presumption that she was necessarily a virgin. She becomes a Jewish by conversion. We don't make
That's
that
what we call
assumption.
racist.
Because goyim, the way the goyim don't have Torah, and what they used to do was they used to have relations with little children that were under the age of 3 years old, and with children. So therefore, we have a special din for them.
Yeah, this was in the ancient times.
All right.
Unfortunately, their morality was such that they permitted this
That's
type
the
of
way
It's
activity.
so different today.
And then, in the case of a Jewish girl that was held captive by Goyim, there
That
again
too.
they would apply the
She could've
same
been raped.
morality that they apply
Right.
to their own children.
Right.
Vashivka, and a maidservant. This is somebody who was a goy, but she became a servant in a Jewish
In a
home.
Jewish house.
And therefore, after she's freed, she has the laws that a Jewish woman has.
Yes.
Okay, but previously she was among goyim. So again, about her status is not known to us
It's
either,
all
since she was among the goyim.
questionable, okay?
Too. And this is and they were redeemed, which is talking about a captive who's redeemed.
Yeah.
Veshini Skyru.
They used to ransom the
Yeah.
Jewish people.
Veshini Skyru, and they were converted. The Yoris were converted. Banish Dacharu, and they were freed, like Shivcha, a maidservant.
Yeah.
She was freed, and she gets there's the laws of a Jewish woman. And they're over 3 years old in one day.
No.
If they were under
Yeah.
If they were under 3 years old in one day, and we said that their hymen grows back, then they're presumed to be virgins.
Yeah.
So it's okay. Then they have the din as a basula would,
Yeah.
and they would get the whole thing. But in this case, these girls are over 3 years old in one day, which means that if they were among the goyim, anytime after they were 3 years old in one day, we cannot be sure, since their hymen doesn't grow back, and we don't know
Yeah.
whether they may have been ravaged or whether
Yeah.
things may have happened to them among the goyim. Therefore, Kesuvos and Mona. We say that their Kesuva is only 100
Yeah.
because they have a chazaka. We have a tendency that, or have a presumption that they may not, that they're not
They were
basulas.
not
Yeah.
virgins
Not
at the time.
virgins.
No problem.
The England tennis consume, and they don't have a claim on their virginity.
In other words, the husband, the second
The second husband doesn't have a claim on
I
their,
cannot claim that I expected you to be a virgin
because she can't be a
because of what happened to her in the interim time.
Okay.
Now, could you read the Rashi on that? Turn back to the Rashi explains words and phrases
Side.
in the inner column. Words and phrases.
No.
Okay, so I'm going to fill it in. I'm going to put the stuff in the Mishnah too, but I'll fill this whole so you understand. It becomes understandable. So if we say that a gadol, somebody's over 9 in one day,
Yeah.
has relations with the katana, and what's a katana? Rashi explains pechusa means she's less than 3. Not exactly. She's less than 3 years old in one day, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bia, that her bia is not considered a bia. Her intercourse is not considered intercourse.
It's very hard to
It's like the action that was in the
There
Gemara.
has to be 4 people through the water, not the same two that saw her go in.
Yeah.
Can it be the same two that saw her
Like
go
it was, the action it was. So the Gemara says, Kishro, you think Ma'aser Shehoyo, the king Hoyo? You think that in the case of David HaMelech, that there was a warning ahead of time, and then there was, that the husband knew about it, that she was going to see David? He never knew about it, he was in war. There was no warning, and there was no defying the warning, going into a room alone. And also, Mi Osro, was she really prohibited to David? We see later on, David married her, and there was no question that the marriage was valid. So how can you say that? And the Gemara, hold on, this is not a difficult. This is the way we have to learn. A woman is not prohibited to continue living with her husband and to divorce her. What happens? This thing of 2 witnesses at the 2 witnesses closeted in the room together. From the case of the law of the king spirit, there was no such warning or closeting together. And below Easter, and therefore she was not prohibited later on to marry Zoe. Whereas, especially regardless of that, Kasha is still difficult. You're trying to say this. If there is two witnesses for the keynote, for the warning, and two witnesses for the positive, we say that she would be prohibited to her husband, he has to divorce her. That's a Kesuvos, but you're implying that if he just makes a statement, I found her, it was an opening, that's not sufficient proof that she had been unfaithful to him.
And if she's the Ashes coin or Ashes or...
According to your reasoning, I'll press you further and ask you an additional question. You're saying only in the case when you have two witnesses for the warning and two witnesses for the positive, that you're prohibited. Aiding low, but what if you had two witnesses to actually see the actual sexual intercourse? That would not be enough to two witnesses. That's the actual thing. The rest is the circumstantial evidence. This is direct evidence. You don't need any warning for that. This is direct evidence. We're talking about circumstantial evidence.
If you see a guy kill someone, you don't have to have...
Here's right here, direct evidence. You're trying to say this. We have a general rule on the testimony of two witnesses. A thing is established in the Torah law, and this is general rules. A general rule.
Which makes it a fact that they saw the act.
Yeah. But so the Gemara has to come out and say, no, I can't say that. Oh, Gemara, this is the way we have to learn what the halacha is. A woman is not prohibited to continue living with her husband, but eidachos, with one witness. Because as we said, on the testimony of two witnesses, the thing is established, not on one. You need two witnesses to establish this fact. But in the case when you have where there's two witnesses as to the warning and two witnesses as to the custody, even if you have after that one witness that can testify as to the actual action, that would be sufficient.
I have a shaila. If you don't need it, that's right. With Kinu and Stira, you're usher anyway. Why do you need the one more witness? So that's the question. What do you need that for? What do you need the Eid Echad? Kinu and Stira is enough. Even if nothing actually happened, that's enough to make her usher because it's enough of a death. So why do you need a 1-8? A big deal. So fine, she did it, but she's still usher. Is that for putting her to death, you mean? Or is it for because she's committed a sin? Or is that just to divorce? Kinu and Stira, you just divorce. But with the Eid Echad, could she be put to death on that? Or does she still need 2 aiding for that to be put to death? So my question is,
You've answered your question.
No, it isn't. You need 2 aiding to put her to death. You can't just put her to death because one person says, oh, I saw her with this man, they were actually doing this thing. So what is the purpose? What is the purpose of the extra aid? She'd be usher anyway without him. What does he need him for?
Let's look now in
the one is of no value. You needed either 2 or none.
And it says the 8
Say
echad.
it again?
Okay, when the kinu was 8 echad, my question is, why do you need that 8 echad? You're usher with a kinu steer, and if it's to put her to death, you need 2 aiding for that. So what?
No, by this.
See, that's the reason why it's always important to go over things to clarify in your mind what in fact is the
It's a question I had for a long time. Go ahead.
Well, that's the reason I go over it. Although it appears that it's a waste of time, it really not is. It clarifies the issues. I would start talking about, see where I'm pointing? Way down there.
Is it right after the Rabbi Lewis or another? Okay.
Omar, this is the way we have to learn. Right here. Let me give it to you.
The question she asked, we're seeing what Rashi says.
This is the way we have to learn. A woman is not prohibited to her husband. There must occur this activity. A ma'aseh from the action that occurred. A ma'aseh the Basheva from the action of Basheva. On a moment, we learned about kini stira. There was no kini stira. Below Osro, and therefore she was not prohibited to later on marrying Dom. Aiding law. You try to say with witnesses, direct witnesses, lo b'kmiya was wonderment. Afilo yesh edim she's seen so. If you have witnesses that she actually committed adultery, without question, direct witnesses, perhaps you would try to say that she's not prohibited to her husband without any prior warning. Stephen says in Torah, he says, if he wants to ever sober, if a person finds an unseemly thing in his wife, only tough saw a surah. If she was not already married, was arrested, she's still prohibited if it occurs that you have two witnesses.
Even before her.
Yeah. But we want to say, one witness is not sufficient to prohibit the wife to continue living with her husband. That's evidence for our purposes. The Aleph Dover moment, we're going to think for a moment. They have two psukim. One pasuk says, Al Pi Shnayim Eidim Yachid Dover, on the testimony of two witnesses, a thing is established. And another pasuk, what's the other? That would be in Sota. If you remember, Kesuvos forever is Dover. The word Dover and Dover. Al Pi Shnayim Eidim Yachid Dover. And so when it says, when a man finds an unseemly thing, no, that's where it is. A man finds an unseemly, and then he says, a thing is established by testimony of two witnesses. So we learned the Gezerah Shavah. We learned that Gezerah Shavah.
So the only unseemly thing has to be with two
There has to
witnesses.
be two witnesses.
Why do you say dover? Why dover twice?
Because Gezerah Shavah.
We compared the double of one.
Remember, there's dover. So again, a Gezerah Shavah.
Can I answer?
Yeah.
Wait, if there's one aid that she was with Tameh, then her Kesuvos is torn up. She can drink that. It's not a question of that's not do anything. The only thing is, if there's one aid Shanitma, then her Kesuvos is torn up. But there's no death
What do you mean?
penalty. You don't need two aids.
What is it we're talking about?
He's giving this shot.
Look on the bottom of it.
Right.
You mean they would tear up her
Almost
Kesuvos?
divorced her.
Applied to her in two different places.
Hold it in
No,
Syria?
no. Now we're getting a different, a middle ground. If there's kidneys and there's no witnesses,
Or the act.
you just divorce the wife and she gets a Kesuvah. Easter with Eidel, you divorce the wife
With no
and she
Kesuvah.
loses her Kesuvah.
Wait, what was it again when she doesn't when she
With Kino and Stira alone, you get to keep it? I thought that's enough. If it's Asar, then it's enough to tear off the Kesuvah. No, without Ada.
Without the Eidel.
Just Kino and Stira.
Without the Eidel.
So that's understand.
So we got three stages. Keating is there alone will force her to be ahead. You can't live with her, but
No. Yeah, doesn't make sense.
So that means, well, that's a great marriage.
Tina and Siri can't live with her. Tina used Sira and then aid, and she can tear up. She tears up her Kesuvah.
She tears up or he tears up.
Whoever gets. I have a
Must
question.
say,
It says-
without the aid, you must say that she gets Kesuvah if the marriage is
Then we must be saying that by Pesach the Kesuvah gets torn up. Not only she gets
If he had
Asar.
honest, if there's only one subject.
If only one subject she gets
Hold on a second.
No.
Hold on a second. It does not mean, in my humble opinion, that Eid Echad on Kinoi and Stira.
No.
What it's talking about is Stira. I feel Eid Echad. Even if the event after Kinoi and Stira, one witness
Right,
comes, it's not no good. It's so to switch this. It says the in Kinoi and Stira ain't over to the elbow.
It says like this. Distra, a vote is based off. If there was kidney theory, there was one witness that said that she was tummy. In other words, he actually saw the act. Never, the third to vote, not a Kesuvah, but she's just divorced.
with one A.
One witness.
Okay, then are they saying?
Cause her.
Then I have a question. That the first thing
Then she's gonna be
I had thought the whole subject matter was trying to find out how she can be usher, not how she can lose her Kesuvah. Because we were learning at first the Pesach Kesuvah is only how she can be usher, not. So my question is the two. We get down to the two circumstances where she can be divorced or where she can lose her Kesuvah. Which is it, or is it both?
This is another question.
Here we're
No,
getting
wait,
new
wait,
things.
Now we got to come to another question.
Pesach
What
Kesuvah and
actually
this
what we
and-
learned,
Yeah.
the tail end of what we learned yesterday, you recall, when we learned in Binyan, that the only time that a person gets skila or anything, that not only with age, but also,
8 in the morning, warning.
you have to have warning and
Kinoi.
that's what it
And,
is. Warning
and witnesses.
witnesses, and then you have to have
Yeah.
actual witnesses at the actual action that they deprived. No,
Right.
we didn't, we're not, if we had witnesses at the actual action you find it, there would be a death penalty.
Right, there'd be no problem.
Do it.
Hold
Do
it, but she can't be put to
If you
death,
have
can? She can't be put to death, but she didn't have warning beforehand. If they just see her, she loses
No.
her Kesuvah, but she's not put to death.
That's right.
No, wait.
Is the question whether she's put to death or whether she's gonna drink?
I thought the question was simply divorce. I didn't know it was tearing up a Kesuvos. I didn't know it had
Okay.
anything to do with anything. I
Now
thought
I
it
ask you a question, okay. If we have two witnesses at Keno, two witnesses at Stira, and two witnesses at the Maisakoma.
she could buy. She's a,
Is she put to death?
yes.
Or does she drink from the water?
What's she gonna drink for? She saw them.
What, the drinking of the water.
The water's when
is
there's a
determined
drought.
whether or not she was guilty of being unfaithful.
But
What do you need to drink? What are you trying to prove?
But under one witness, she could be allowed to drink the water.
Yes.
And she's got a pass to go out.
That's right.
so on one witness she can drink
That's
the
what
water.
the
It
paper.
doesn't say that, he said to boy, he said them across the hall.
So what does it
One
mean?
witness. Now, in other words, they say like this, one shot like this. If she has Kini and Syria alone, she can still drink the water, if that was still out there.
Because there was no
Yeah,
witness at all.
but if you have Kini and Syria and you have one witness already, there's too much involved, we no longer have a
Go
doubt
through the water ceremony,
No, already.
you dismiss her without.
without getting killed. And if you have two witnesses, you get killed.
I have a question then. Why is this one witness have such power that she can't drink from the water anymore? Since
It's not one witness, it's a cumulative effect of the
only one witness to the Maisakoma.
Yeah.
Only one witness.
Keen Stira could be just totally circumstantial. She could be in a room without knowing it.
I can understand if there's one A, the tube is torn up, because that's not a bad, it's not a death penalty. But the thing is, since even the death penalty, why is it one witness, one guy can just come and say, okay, I saw her, the Maisakoma, therefore she can't drink from
He
the
could
water.
very well be lying.
And why should she lose her husband?
Because of Kino of a
One
Stira.
witness.
If you have Kini and Syria alone, the husband is required to divorce her, right?
No, oh, okay, yes, but can't he take the water?
You can't live with her. She's not gonna wait for her. Wait, didn't we learn?
Can't live till she has the water.
He's not allowed to live with her.
Meaning she has to drink from the waters if they have the
Well, talking
water?
about, otherwise,
Okay, that means she can drink from the waters with Kino.
Therefore, can't you drink the water? What if it's coming?
Yeah.
Raji used the language, Rajwayim would have a basis for assuming that she in fact
If there's one, what about I'll be ate up with like,
it's really not obvious.
it is. She didn't still were seen by it, but that only means she can drink from the water. If she drinks from the water, she's innocent. She can take it, says Kino and Stira, she can end up drinking the water and she can be innocent, innocent children. The thing is, now if one aide comes, he can blow the whole thing for her just because this one aide can make up that I saw her, one aide.
So what if he didn't see her? What if it was someone else?
I don't understand.
I'll speak to, I'll send
And also, I don't understand, when we're trying, I thought the whole point was to see whether she was us or not to see her lose her Kesuvos. So I don't understand why we come down to two circumstances where one she loses her Kesuvos and the other one she's just us her. I don't understand that.
Depends, you're building
Unless Pesach Pesach by a
I
H's
mean,
coin or
you
by
already
a...
have circumstantial evidence already with Kini and Syria already.
Circumstantial. That's no evidence. That's not acceptable circumstantial. That doesn't prove anything.
You can make someone swear, can make
No,
someone...
some guy says, don't go with this guy. So then all of a sudden, she was in this room sleeping, and this guy walked in. All of a sudden, these Adam come around and say, hey, look, you're alone with her. Okay, that's Kino and Stira already. Now one guy comes and says, I don't like her anyway. I'm thinking, I saw the Maisakoma. He goes to bed, and I saw the Maisakoma. Okay, you're divorced from your husband. And all she did nothing wrong. What's what is? This all is circumstantial. That holds up. We got another.
Better the husband
I
shouldn't
wouldn't want to be in
say
that kind of a courtroom. That's terrible. What evidence is that? He was sleeping. She didn't bother.
What if she brings two aiding? Hold it. What if she brings two aiding to say she wasn't in there at that time? With that, when that one aide says she was.
She came into a room while she
Then
was
does
sleeping.
is she just Kino and Stira and she can take the waters? If she brings two aiding to say she was somewhere else? Or does she bring two aiding to say that that aide was somewhere else?
And then the witnesses are punished because they are false witnesses.
That's only if they're
So how does so he gets malchus because he can't lose his
No,
Kesuvos?
that's only if they're Muslim though. But it's
But then she said she had witnesses that can contradict. They said that she was closeted with this woman, And she would,
If other witnesses saw
that's
that,
what the
fine, what if
the
witnesses, how many times you see somebody and get two witnesses say, hey, I saw you didn't get her?
the type of witnesses
I've
we're
had cases
talking
where there are 4 witnesses and they were wrong.
No, what we're talking about, we're not
No, we're
talking
not.
about.
Hold it, does he have to be a kosher aid?
Mistaken.
Yes,
He's got to be a kosher aid to be a 1A.
yes.
Fine, so what if he's a kosher aid that doesn't, that
We
doesn't
gotta
get
have kosher
caught?
witness, we can't have just anybody
But
go.
this week he hasn't gotten caught yet. This is his first time, he's unreliable, big deal.
you called him, huh?
It's
You
still
called him.
1A.
No, you have to, if you don't call the reliability of the witness, you have to have others to testify that in fact he is a reliable
He
guy.
gets his bar buddies to go to the court.
Testify that they're reliable.
So two of those
So we
guys.
get
They,
court
they
here.
want to get somebody for doing
Now,
something.
can I just say something?
They
Here,
try
can I
anyway.
give you the example again?
To get-
This
to
woman
get
comes
somebody
and says,
punished.
don't be alone with him. And then she's sleeping, and somebody comes in, he had a pass key because he's the janitor, and he came in.
I will also go further into it, okay?
Then one guy comes and says, I saw the mice of Tumma.
Okay, so the question is, the two cases we bring get down
Question to
to,
say, all right, let's, for our purposes, we'll discuss
Okay.
at this purpose. He has to, whether or not, we're concerned at this point, whether or not the marriage has to be terminated or
Okay.
not.
When we
Yes.
finish Kesuvos, let's learn something.
All right, then,
First, we gotta finish Kesuvos.
okay, so we're going,
all right, now,
Okay.
let's go further.
okay, it says, okay, in Pesach Pesuach is like there's two aiding involved, meaning by the two
Because
cases,
he is sure, he's
and
positively
it's only
sure.
one doubt, where there's only one doubt.
So, two witnesses, for what purpose?
But only one doubt to divorce, that he can't live with him.
Because
That's
Can't
all.
remember, he caused it to die.
No,
It's not two witnesses. All you have to believe us grew up. If you will say, what is the reason that the case of Malach, he was not prohibited to marry Bathsheba after he had lived with her when she had earlier been married to Uriah? Honestly, one answer is very simple. He raped her.
is she then allowed to marry someone who raped her?
Wait, the question is, why wasn't
Then
she
I have a
offered
Shiloh for you.
Carmela?
Shiloh, if the rape is not considered, then if the husband's not usher, then the boil's not usher, so to speak?
No.
If
What
he raped her?
That's right.
That means someone could get along and say, hey, let's make up something. If this guy rapes her, then
the
it,
fossilization
okay,
was not necessarily true.
okay,
As a matter of fact, the better position is the second position.
right.
Wait, I have a Shiloh.
You're not-
Why is that he wasn't answered because he raped her? If you rape a woman that's married, you can then go and marry her?
If you both do tshuva later on.
You can marry her?
She doesn't
But if-
gotta do
but if-
tshuva, she
But
just
if it's
raped.
done with her will, she can't marry her. I understand, it's, I'm asking you.
It's not rape.
With her, I said with her will, instead of saying against her. I said with her will.
It's one or the other. It's got to be one or the other.
Okay,
Question
so-
the other way.
Yes,
It's with her will.
then she,
Prohibited to marry later on and she, yeah, she got divorced. Her husband has to divorce her and she can't marry the adulterer. Of course,
She already divorced her.
it was, if she committed adultery intentionally, then she's prohibited later on, even if her husband divorces her, to marry the adulterer.
He's supposed to divorce.
That's law requires, I mean, I'm not saying that everybody lives according to the law, but that's what's required. So you say, well, if you wish, you can give another answer. Before, anybody that's been out to war in the time of David Amalisto, he wrote a bill of divorcement for his wife. So theoretically speaking, nobody was married to anybody when they went to war. So therefore, anybody who lived with anybody else were not living as a married person.
So the get was in effect from the time he went to war.
That's right.
And if he came back, the marriage.
oh, I get it.
Enslaved.
It would only stick, the get would only stick if he dies.
That's right.
So he had-
It was one of those, it was a strict expedition that could be defeated. If he returned after the war, divorce is
Retroactive? Was it retroactive?
Yes,
It's retroactive.
yes. Now the problem was for David Amel to make sure that Uriah
Come back.
didn't come back.
So the marriage continues, so the marriage
No.
continues.
But we learned that
no.
David Amel
It's
didn't
a
sin.
divorce, it's a final divorce if it turns out that he didn't
What
come back
about
to
during the
war.
war? What if
We-
he's still alive during the war? What is
It's an ambiguous state, if you will.
It could be considered a divorce.
It's an ambiguous state, don't
Once
know.
you get married to somebody else while her husband's still alive, It's not considered. Then how can David Amel still think when she was
But David Amel
He
didn't
did
go
not
there.
free her legally until her husband.
He had relations with her, but he didn't marry her.
Oh, that makes it okay.
But that's
But
right.
that doesn't advocate.
But we learned that David Amel did not sin,
I'm
so
not questioning a David Amel sinner, I'm talking about this halacha. Let me ask you the question for a second.
Right.
Okay. She can't get married again because she's considered married.
We don't know.
till the war ends.
So, but would she get married with this kind of a get that if he dies?
We don't, wait, I want to ask you a question. We learned, remember, a woman acquires herself by two ways. Either out of the...
Is she divorced?
What?
If she's alive but doesn't come back, is she divorced?
If he doesn't return to her, she's divorced.
Master
How
Shadow?
long of a waiting
So
time?
it eliminates all missing in action.
How old? Isn't there a time period?
When the war
Yeah.
ends,
Okay, wait,
and
now,
he-
It sometimes takes a week or two.
Yeah, what are the 100-year war?
this totally is not an answer.
what?
If she's considered married and that she can't marry anybody else, and David Amela had relations with her, then it seems he had relations with her while she was married, therefore she should be outside.
No, if you look in a case it says like this. Very specific. First top case is right there on page there. Almost. If he would die in the war, he get Mishal also and be considered a divorce from the time of its right. This was the kind of condition.
So the only thing that had to happen was he had to die for it to be legal.
No. Can I tell you something then?
If he died
No, this is
in
wrong.
war,
Or
It can't be.
if he
Can I
decided
explain-
not to come back at all,
No, that's wrong.
after a few weeks,
Can I explain?
She's free.
Okay, without interruption, can I please explain my point?
Go
Right.
ahead.
Okay, my point is, it's like Rashi, it's a get. If he dies, from the time of the writing,
yeah.
therefore, until it's known that he dies, it's no get. Otherwise, it would seem that if he doesn't die, it's no get. First of all, if she couldn't get married again, because then it turns out he's still living, she's married to two husbands, which is wrong.
No, you
I
can't.
know, that's what you said, it's wrong. Thing is,
She would be presumed to be maintain her being married. Aha!
therefore, if Abraham would have relations with her in her prior state of married, therefore, he would be committing adultery. Therefore,
Not unless he's willing to do it.
If it was an onus, then...
The question.
He did die.
Later, after.
So then it's
2 years came along,
retroactively
she
okay.
died.
So it was retroactively
He had
okay.
a miscarriage, okay.
No, he died. He died because he was killed in action.
But first he had had relations with her.
But it was retroactive, it made it okay, like. It was like retroactively made okay.
But he took a big gamble there.
Wait,
What if
no.
he wouldn't have died?
Modovi did not marry this woman until her husband was killed in action.
But he fought her.
That's true.
Such slushing, can we talk a little more respectfully?
If he raped, then okay, fine, he raped.
He didn't sin, we learned he didn't sin, so it's gotta be somewhere in
Okay,
here.
then I'm asking a shadow about this thing. Now, if he was with her and everything before, and he had consummated the premarital, does that sound better to you?
Yeah.
Then, and she's still considered married because her husband didn't die yet.
We got
still-
no matter.
to marry her.
There was from the time until her husband died.
Is he obligated to feed her during this period of time from his own, if she considered that?
There was no adjudication of this status. We don't know in fact.
Big legal words. I don't know.
No, there's a point when you want to determine whether or not, if there was a, and say, what is their status at this point?
What's her status with this kind of a?
I would say, until it's proved otherwise, she's divorced. Until her husband comes back from war, she is a
Then
divorced
she
woman.
can get married to somebody else. if
Right,
she
but
wants to.
if at the time when her husband comes back from war,
Then, she just said that she can, that it's a
divorced until he comes
Then
back.
she can marry a subscriber like this.
At that point,
With an option.
sort of like wherever you
First option
Would it be?
His first option, he comes before any other man in case he returns. In the meantime,
She's
she's in an ambiguous state. She hasn't got him, of course, he's in war, and she hasn't got anybody else because
So she's considered somebody who
She's like an
one
Azuna.
permitted to anybody else.
either one of two things can happen.
She's not- like, she's not
Either her
gonna-
husband returns, Or he doesn't return.
When he
If he doesn't,
when he returns, does he have to remarry her, or is it just?
No.
It's an
The
automatic
divorce is-
state of In this meantime, she's considered,
see, we found out these conditional types.
You just give the divorce right away.
You want a divorce or you don't want a divorce. But this conditional type can get all kinds of complications.
okay, you didn't have to divorce his wife, all 18 wives of his
No, the Jewish law, the Torah law requires a Jewish woman to have only one wife husband, and a Jewish husband to
No,
have
his
one
wife, again, is Governor Mel have to get his wife?
He didn't go to war.
No, he didn't go to war. He stayed.
He goes up in war with the people.
No, it's very
Yes, talking
He sends
about.
those other guys.
What do you think? So anyway, in this ambiguous small phase,
Yeah, well, what is this 12-8 thing?
right around
They
the
didn't want the king to be killed. They said, you will fight the war, because I don't want him to be killed.
But that's when he did power the people, right? But this is beforehand.
No, he's pretty old by this time.
He's 50.
Now, in this
No, 13 years before it was 70. So that means he was what?
In this
70.
ambiguous state,
It's not-
she is not permitted to anybody else.
No.
Okay,
Let's come
so
to
she cannot live with anybody else. She's
No.
so she's considered
On-
on hold.
What's so difficult to understand that?
Okay,
So
no,
theoretically, if it wasn't honest, there would be no.
then she's
no-
not considered married. She's not considered divorced. She's considered in the middle.
Her status at this point is ambiguous. It has not been adjudicated. By the time we have to adjudicate it, it's already something has happened.
That should happen now.
We wait until the war is over with. If the man returns, it's not a
How far past the war does you have to wait till?
He could
Not
still
3
be
minutes.
alive at war and not return, meaning he made the decision not to come back to her, she's free. She can now marry anybody, it's no problem.
That's right.
The get is solved.
That saves the heartache that we have nowadays.
Back 7
Heartache.
years later, or 6 years later, 5 years
Forget
later.
it, kid.
It happened in Israel.
Yeah, lot-
Okay.
All right, okay? So he says like this.
We solve, was there more on the
So,
subject?
We're in a state of flux.
No, hold on. See, that's a chichos. You go, Melech was sent by his father Yishai to visit his other brothers who were in the army. They were in the army of Shaul, King Saul, the first king, and so he sends his younger brother, David, to investigate whether his brothers need anything. The Shaul, ask him if everything's all right. Let our Ruvodom tikam and take their Arabosim. And the world of the Gemara asks, "My es Arabosim." What does it mean, Arabosim? Something that there's an entanglement. They know the bino. Things that are concerned between a husband and wife is an entanglement. Their marriage. In other words, take the divorce papers from your brothers or their wives.
Oh, he says he was sending David. Yeshua was sending David to get
food.
as a shliach to get the gets to their wives.
Yeah.
They didn't send it before they left.
They were going.
Now they're going to the front.
They were going into the front. They were going to go and face the police team, and they figured they might lose their lives, so they sent divorces with their brother back home.
The wives.
Nobody comes.
No, they had two of them there and a shliach.
But
Shliach.
he's bringing you the
You got them there to Israel.
dealing with
This entanglement.
what is
We have
Temple Robin. They know that they know.
the thing that entangles between them, that
The marriage.
attaches them.
Okay.
Arab, what's Arab?
There is a surrounding.
Arab is the mixture. Arab.
Okay.
Dust.
Rabbi,
Five. Omer Baya.
we usually go. Rabbi, I also learned this concept that the person says that he can make on himself a piece of Easter.
Yeah.
We'll believe him for that extent that and we don't say that he doesn't know what he's talking about. How do we know that?
Only in the case of a coin, Ashes coin and a.
Yeah. Doubt.
Right.
We have a general rule. The Gemara tells us that in the old times, the virgins should only get married on the fourth day of the week. They used to have a Bezdin meeting on the Thursday morning. So therefore, if there was any hanky-panky between the bride,
Morning after.
he would go and complain to the Bezdin that he was gypped. He was defrauded.
Because the best they could get married on the
Wednesday night and consummate the marriage, and then he come back. As soon as the Yom Ravi, only to the fourth day can he get married. Yom Chamishi Bo, and I'm not on the fifth day, because I'll be married on the fifth day, he wouldn't have to get back to Monday, until next Monday and Thursday. All right.
Yeah, complain.
That's what the statute, yeah.
But it's that, let's say it's the real quickie job.
No, but the court is in session Thursday morning.
It means if you get married in the daytime.
No, it says you can only get married on Wednesday.
You mean he's gotta get married before sunset?
He usually gets married on the daytime.
Usually they get married when-
They usually get married on the daytime. Okay.
They didn't have electric lights, so you're gonna burn.
Candlelight. My time was Shumi Kuritaita. The reason that perhaps that you're insisting that it only occurs on Wednesday and the marriage is consummated then is because you're afraid that he'll pull off. But usually a husband marries a woman and he finds she's not a virgin after the first stage of indignation. He might say, well, I love her anyway, I'll keep her.
Even though he's
Even
off
though
there.
the law requires him to divorce her if she was intentionally adulterous. So we don't want him to pull off and his desire to do the right thing according to the law. And for what purpose? Even law, if you say that the reason we're not permitting a postponement of a different day is because we don't want to go and if he wants to give her Kesuvos, needs a law. Let him give her the Kesuvos. If he's prepared to go and divorce her and pay her off, what are we concerned about? It's just money.
What do you pay her off?
He wants to end the marriage.
Yeah,
He's coming without it.
without any ground.
What does it concern us? He wants to pay her off and end the marriage. Let him pay her.
What do you mean by pay her off?
Meaning give her the 200 zuzim or give her money in the Kesuva that if they end the marriage, she gets. Yeah, if they end the marriage.
But she gets her Kesuvos. Is that her
That's her-
proof to remarry?
No, that's a Kesuva is she gets money
Money
if
and the termination of a marriage.
whether his death or the divorce.
In other words, it's like an agreed settlement. When they enter the marriage, there is an
Financial-
agreed settlement. Agreed settlement as written. If the marriage is broken up,
Without her fault.
yeah, without her fault. Without her fault, she gets a certain amount of money. So he stands to lose monetarily if he ends the marriage. So why should we be concerned if he doesn't want the marriage and he wants to get rid of her and nobody's being hurt? He's paying her money. What are we getting involved with?
Tell me if that's not the reason.
But if he charges her with not being a virgin at the time of marriage,
He's trying
To get her out of the money.
Yeah, he's trying to nullify the marriage
How
application.
does he know she was a virgin before they got married?
I don't know. Maybe he's a big.
how do we
Okay.
know?
Very quick. We'll learn later in Yud. Yud of Malachi. There are 9 cases where each time the husband came to the court and said, I was gypped, I was defrauded, the woman claimed she was a virgin, she wasn't a virgin.
What do you mean claim? She said she was?
Yeah, and her Kesuva is 200 zuzim. Oh no! If she in fact is not, wait, Moshe, listen. If she in fact is not a Basula and she says, I am, just to get the extra money in case the marriage breaks off.
That just means she's dishonest. She's immoral.
But if she was in fact a
She doesn't mean she's immoral.
right, but that comes out later.
We're talking about whether or not the monetary...
Okay, whatever. So,
Okay? Okay. All right, fine. So he says like this, let's give it to her. Well, what difference does it law? Let her give it to her. If that's all that's involved is the question of money and he's prepared to pay it, what are we
the
getting
court
involved
doesn't
in?
have to get involved at all.
We don't have to get involved. We can let the divorce her.
We'll abide by the money system.
But now if he wants to go and make it a question whether or not she's prohibited to live with him, now he's trying to...
Cheat her out of money.
establish that she's
adult?
been unfaithful.
Yeah.
That's a different proposition. There you have to have proof positive that in fact she was unfaithful. You're not just filling with money matters that he's prepared to give. You're now only compromising her character. No, he's making a claim. My law, presumably, the Kotoin, no, that presumably he's saying I found there was an opening and therefore we should believe him? No. The Kotoin, time of doming, he says I found no blood when I consummated the marriage.
he found her.
No.
I found no blood. Therefore she was not a virgin. And later on we'll learn cases where in fact, mere fact that there's absence of blood is nullified.
Why does it say he didn't claim
No,
her?
that's not a
So why does
virgin.
it say he didn't claim her? Why didn't he?
You might assume that's what he's saying, and we would believe him, but that kind of to prohibit her. She says, no. Yeah, no, he says,
It's not talking about those two cases, and we're talking about general case.
a general case, we're talking about.
For Ace Roll, and it was
Okay,
after
can I ask
she
you a
was...
question?
Yeah.
Is the reason that we're talking about blood, that he found no blood, is because that is visual proof. It's whether there was or wasn't blood. And
It's
there's-
some evidence, but it's not.
Why can't they claim time?
Because that's a doubt on a doubt if it's a regular case. We're not talking
Well,
about
first
this
of all,
case.
the test is whether or not he is competent to testify to that.
We said
How did he become
for
competent?
himself. We admitted we already.
No,
How did
that's
he
one
become
doubt.
competent? Where did he become this big expert?
It's only the two...
Knowing how a woman looks. No, only in the case of Ashes Coin.
And-
Only
Because that's one subject.
one subject.
Right, but
Wait a second. By time it's Darman, how many
that's one doubt. How many doubts?
Hold on.
Kindness, dummy, there's no subject. It's not proof. It's circumstantial at best.
Why do we say that's what he claimed?
Because he's not claiming a doubt on a doubt. He's claiming circumstantial evidence. And
Yes,
Pesach
yes.
Pesach is not circumstantial. It's his own opinion. It's not actual...
And it may not be
They're both
conclusive.
circumstantial, so why did they have to say, after the circumstantial?
Because it would say that you have to have only one doubt. More than one doubt, we wouldn't even have to give him any credence whatsoever. But in the case of, I didn't see any blood, we might give him a credence we wouldn't find out.
Because it's
that's
like one doubt.
No, a person doesn't have to be a big expert to see whether there's blood or no blood.
What do you give?
Credence to go and prohibit him from living with her.
That doesn't, first of all, you know, it says, that does not mean anything. It has no credence.
More later on.
Colorblind.
We protect
There's
her
different
honor.
things.
She's still married.
These kind of tell you have any credence whatsoever.
Which means
What?
he's
Any
single.
credence whatsoever.
We're talking that it's not talking about the...
Okay, fine.
All right. No, I don't know.
Now I don't get this next part.
No, I'm
It's
really
held
not.
a long time.
We'll learn
15.
no, next time we'll learn more.
But you have to leave at 6:30.
What? It ain't 6:30 yet.
How come she lose her Kesuvos?
You got till 6:30? Use it.
I want you to know this. Kesuvos and Messiah. They